Yeah.
Hi, welcome to Quick Catch Up, Michael.
I'm Skylar.
Skylar had an interesting revelation about the chin scrote for the crab.
No such thing.
You know what? There's just one of these battlefields, so we're gonna go ahead and hit this guy up right here.
Whoa, that's a new mob.
Yep.
He's a mage.
This is going to be something that was. The best part about.
I knew he was gonna do something.
The best part about it is that he's still floating.
But he's like collapsed.
Like gravity has come into full effect on like his robes. Like he is lying on some imaginary ground, but also still hovering up and down. His little magic balls
fall. Oh God, he's like, no, please, no more.
I can't take it.
My magic is no match for your
I
axe.
came here with the dessert hag. He said there'd be cookies.
Actually, I brought these macaroons for him, but You ever had like fresh macaroons? Or that's what they're called, right?
There's a French way to say them, and I don't say it, so I don't. Macaron. I don't know. I am not good at French.
Macaroons. My roommate is.
I'll go with German and Spanish.
What macaron? Like what?
German's just easier for me to look at and be like, oh yes, I know how you're supposed to say that word. Sound like you're spitting, and are very angry at something.
How to pronounce macaron?
Like Taschenrechner.
Wait, I got my phone on silent.
Taschenrechner is my favorite German word. He's busy looking up macaroons.
Macaron.
Because that letter makes the exact same sound in both situations.
Cool.
Macaron.
No. Oh God, that fucking song. There.
Yep. Nope. Not doing that. Not doing that.
There's So yeah, I think for the most part we'll probably skip these in the future.
Yeah.
But so you can at least see what we sat and did.
We did them in the one of the like in the forest realm. We did them because there was only like 2 or 3.
It's been a minute.
Yeah.
But yeah, it almost feels like you have to just to keep somewhat on par.
Well, so you don't have to. I mean, in the sense that like you can come in and out of the dungeons, and the monsters do respawn. So like,
okay.
You can grind for levels that way. But the whole game is more or less.
See, he's trying to turn you into a snow cone.
Is he?
What? Yeah.
He looks like he wants a hug. Like a really just
console me.
Big old hug, except you hug that mouth and like your whole head is just in his mouth. Yeah, probably. Let's see. Phoebe didn't get confused, so she can cure him up.
What were you gonna say then?
Good question.
Cool. All right.
Oh yeah, the whole thing does very much seem like it anticipates that you'll have gone through all of these because you get like little experience.
Hold on.
What's up?
Okay, look at the guy's hair on the left.
Uh-huh.
So how it's sticking up.
Yeah.
He almost looks like he's got little kitty ears on the right. Is it just his hair? Is his hair like he like gelled his hair in the morning?
Ooh, I don't like that. No, I don't like that at all.
So his
hair is not that rigid.
So he just has like.
Dude, like, what is this guy up on?
Well, that's God, what was that? Roommate back in the day really liked this band called Static X.
Okay.
And this guy had an insane mohawk, if I recall.
Uh-huh.
Like the lead singer or guitarist or something. I don't listen to the group. So, like his whole thing was he would like hold up his hair and then just spray it with hairspray until it finally became rigid enough that it wouldn't move. Maybe that's what that guy does. And that's why it like pokes up in his little hood as opposed to...
And that reminds me of, this is off topic of the game, but definitely on topic of mohawks. So like, how arbitrary like things like dress codes and stuff are. So back in high school, like there was a dress code, and I mean this kind of gets into the idea of like how do you bend the rules? You know, like what's the way that you get around a given rule? and then have the authorities be like, oh, I guess you're right. So back in high school, and this is, I think, fairly common for... Okay, Phoebe.
I see a switch in the statue, but can't reach it. Let's push it with something. Are you going to push it with a sword?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Phoebe literally has arrows that are probably as, like... Come on, Phoebe. Okay, this... That's right. So there's... This begins the invisible enemies until you find the item that lets you see the enemy.
Okay.
It's kind of dumb.
I mean...
But,
so it's just like a regular Final Fantasy game now.
Except the enemies are still static. Like, they're still just... There's always an enemy in that location. You just can't see it.
Yeah, but...
But it's kind of a weird roundabout way to try and, like, bring back the feel of random encounters, except you can walk around and not get an encounter.
Yeah.
There is a character, I think, in every area that'll be like, you can't see the enemies without, like, the magic mirror or without the gas mask or some shit. That I didn't make that up. That wasn't a joke. No. But so, like, arbitrary rules and stuff, like in high school dress codes, and I think most people's have, like, some kind of facial hair thing, right? Like, some high schools will let you have, like, mustaches, but others won't. And my high school, like, you couldn't have sideburns that fell below your earlobes. And,
okay.
I knew a guy, and he was on the school paper or whatever, and, like, his sideburns were, I don't know, like, they weren't like mutton chops, they were like maybe a quarter of an inch below his sideburns, some kind of ridiculous thing. Like, what if you got really short earlobes or some shit, right? Like, there's some leeway there, but he got a fucking detention for it and had to go, like, go to the nurse and get their little shitty face stripping razor and, like, hack off the little bottom chunk of his sideburns.
This guy's thinking right now, he's like, if I follow the G's, it'll take me to the gelato I've been waiting for.
That's how it works. Look, there's even little knives on it.
Yep. Razor and
meanwhile, there is a dude who has a neon green mohawk. Mm-hmm. And the whole thing with a lot of these, like, dress code things is, which is bullshit a lot of times. It's like, it's distracting to the other students or whatever, which gets real bent out of shape when you start talking about, like, the kind of, like, gender disparities or whatever, like how, like, women whose shorts fall within a certain, like, they're distracting to the male students, but there's, like, nowhere near that level of shit, like, instituted for guy stuff. It's all a lot of, like, in general, like, bullshit. And also the idea that, like, it's distracting is pretty insulting to the individual, I think, because it's basically being like, you can't control yourself. You're going to be staring at these sideburns all day instead of doing your homework. Like, that's exactly what happens. But
yeah, maybe for like the first 10 minutes of the green mohawk, and then I'd be like, all right, well, that's that person.
Yeah, I am definitely not staring at the green mohawk in history class as I'm falling asleep listening to history. Which, sorry, Miss Blodgett, but it happened. I have multiple degrees.
History was always a rough one for me because
it's a hard subject to teach, and I don't, it's an important subject, and actually, like, as an adult, I wish I had valued it more at that age.
I would agree with that. I think my roommate said it well once because she was talking to a history professor, and she said, history is the only... What just happened to that chicken?
He lost all his feathers.
History is the only... I want to see... But he's still kind of floating a little bit, just really sadly. It's the only subject where in college they expect that they have to completely reteach you history because whatever state mandating you have can completely warp your definition of a certain event. And that's history for me. It was one of those things I could never like retain the information given to me unless I actually thought it was interesting.
That I think is the big problem, actually.
Yeah.
It's context. It's like, as you get older, you start caring more about it because you see shit going on around you. I actually don't remember where the chest is with the thing in here, so we're gonna wander for a bit. But you start caring more about like what's going on around you. Like you start asking questions about like, why is this the way it is? Whatever. And the history becomes a lot more relevant to you because you want those answers. And if you want to, start acting on those answers and fix a problem, knowing how it got there is part of that process. But like when your biggest concern is like, make like, a detention because of your fucking sideburns, like what, like that, your frame of reference for why history matters is pretty small. It's more like, which also I think on an environmental level doesn't necessarily help, because you're in a place where like in theory you're supposed to be learning, which means you need to have some kind of rapport and mutual respect for your instructors. But when things get as dicey as like arguing over a 1/4 inch of extra hair, how do you like, it's hard to reconcile like the respect that needs to be between people there, especially because those types of arbitrary restrictions like it's not that you can just like get rid of all of them, but they get over abused by authority figures a lot of times. And so like it's just another layer. Like, what I'm worried about at 15 is pretty substantially different than knowing all of this history would, whatever I would use that for.
Yeah, that's because that almost reminds me of. You got me thinking about like high school, a decade and some years ago. I just remember there was something about like if you were running late to class, instead of actually going to class, you'd basically go to this like sit-in detention-y thing.
Yeah, like AEP. They had some like acronym, that was just like laden with the like dread of being there. Yeah,
and I remember because I drove. So my last year of high school, I had my dad's truck because I was also working while going to school. And I remember I ran late one morning because I just straight up slept through my alarm. And one of the teachers was like telling me to go to whatever it was, and I literally just turned around and was like, no, I'm going to class because I'm one of your honor students. I'm not going to go sit in that stupid room. And I just turned around and walked off, and they did not stop me.
God, it's unfortunate on a lot of levels, like, and because you were a good student, that worked for you.
I had to work for that.
Oh, I know, and I'm not saying you didn't, but
college was even harder.
But just in the sense that like if it were any other student, they wouldn't have allowed that kind of thing to happen because they would have been like, no, you need to go. Like the fact that you were a good student helped you with that.
Yeah.
But then you get into that weird cycle where like the reason a lot of people end up in places like whatever silly acronym they use, like it's not an issue even if necessarily that this person belongs in that place.
Yeah.
It's that in a lot of ways it's a recognition that like the school system doesn't have the tools to handle like what those kinds of students need. Because like my general, I've tutored young kids, I've taught adults, I've taught college students, and my general opinion is that most of that stuff, most of like the lack of like whatever respect or attention or whatever, a lot of it is more in environmental and having somebody understand why things are valuable. And when they've got other shit to worry about, like, if you come from a home where you don't have regular food, that changes your ability radically to deal with like these rules that are kind of being enforced evenly across the board. So like a student who's doing badly might not be doing badly because they want to act out. Like there could be trouble at home, but then they get stuck in this room that's not actually solving any of the core problems. It's treating the symptom. I don't have a good answer for that, which is why I'm sitting here.
Tangent.
That's why I'm sitting here shooting snakes with pretend arrows.
Yeah.
And next time on Crit Couch, maybe I'll find the mirror, or maybe I'll end up on the top floor and kill the bots. We'll find out.
Or just deal with more cat wizards. No.
Stay in school, kids.